the cloud. All right. I think we're all good. Hello. Hi, everybody. How are you? Thanks for making it out tonight. We see some new faces, which is great. Just some quick logistics. Did everybody sign in? Okay, great. And then did everybody get a raffle ticket? Okay, we don't include the kids in that, but at least the adults. Restrooms, you're going to go through the wooden door here on your right, go down the hallway. There's two restrooms. The first one that you come to on the right is the women's restroom. The second one across from the drinking fountain is the men's. So just keep an eye on that. I'm going to make sure my clicker works here. Let's see what happens. It's funny how it like works until you actually go to actually use it. And then there we go. Okay. So some news and updates about the Beekeepers Guild. So first of all, thank you so much again for coming tonight. We're a volunteer-based beekeeping group, and we have people come from all over, like the Central Valley, so in the foothills. So we're really glad to have you here. I just want to point out we have a couple of volunteers. We have Zoe, who is a director in waiting. She's the one that greeted you as you came in. We also have Bill Burdick. He's one of our board of directors, and we also have Judy Prima in the back, and myself, Cherie. So we're so glad that you made it. We also have Mark Allen. He's not here yet, but he might kind of wander in, so which is great. He comes all the way from Sacramento. So we do have, I saw 2 t-shirts back there. Is there 2? Okay. Yay! We still have some t-shirts and some hats and some patches and pins and all great things. So please check those out before you leave tonight. We also have our pollen patties. So for those of you that are on our Facebook group, we actually worked with Global Patties, and we were able to get a group order going. And your participating in that actually helped us a little bit with our community hives. So if you are Ed or Phil, or Bill has some, and then who else? There was, Terry, and then, oh yeah, we got some too. We have a couple of extras. They're $3 a piece. So if you need some pollen patties, a couple of them, be sure to get some on your way out. But those folks that ordered some, they're here, and we'll wheel them out to your car because those boxes are pretty heavy. All right, some news and announcements. We are always recruiting and looking for volunteers. So we are not only looking for more directors in waiting, but we're also looking for board members. We have a lot going on, especially in this next year. So if you're interested, you don't have to be a master beekeeper. You don't have to be, wildly experienced. We would just love for someone that maybe has experience being on a board, who maybe can have some skills that can lend towards the board and the guild would be great. So feel free to talk to any of the board of directors if that's something that you might be interested in. We're also looking for volunteers for not only our Honey Harvest Fest in November, but also our fantastic Christmas party. So I want to make sure we talk about that. But before I do, we are opening up our educational hives this Saturday morning. And we're going to try and get it all done because Jesse's Grove has a big pumpkin event that later that morning. So Bill's actually taken a turn this time to open them up. If you plan to be there, please talk to Bill tonight to let him know before you leave. But how many of you have heard about our educational hives? Okay, good. I'm seeing lots of hands. Okay, good. So we are very fortunate to have a partner with Jesse's Grove Winery, and we have 4 educational hives, which are allowing our members to be able to develop those skills and also have really hands-on experience with live bees. You have to be a member, and that's because of insurance reasons. So if you're not sure how to join the guild, definitely talk to Zoe. There's a link. And all memberships will expire as of December 31st. So we're going to look for renewals and hopefully make that available online in December. And then you'll probably get a reminder email that will say, hey, your membership's ending, do you want to rejoin? So make sure you look for that. It's only $25 a year for an individual, and we think it's a great way to support us in the group and as volunteers. So Honey Harvest Fest, my goodness. How many of you have participated in the annual honey tasting contests? Yes, in the past. So it is a fun event. We usually kind of run through how to do a honey tasting. In the years past, we've used the information from UC Davis. And this year we're totally going to change it up. So we're actually going to do a honey harvest fest along with the honey tasting contest. So what that means is we're inviting everybody in the public. We're actually going to hold it at Jesse's Grove Winery. They are open, and so they'll have people coming through from the winery. And we're offering our members a chance to not only enter that contest, but to actually have a table where they can sell their honey. And we would love to have you participate. So tonight is the last night you can sign up. So if you want to sign up, please let me know. I'll give you your honey tasting cups and get you situated. But we are expecting hopefully some great people to come through, a good number. It's also going to be a great opportunity for you to get out there and sell your honey, right? Or maybe find some new customers, because it's not always easy to sell your honey. You know, it might be word of mouth. It might be, you know, maybe you do a booth here and there, but this is a way for people to really come in and taste all different honeys all in one spot. And they really don't ever get a chance to do that. So there is a few flyers that we have. So if you can help us post them, see me after the meeting. We also have a display up there with the picture. So you're welcome to take a picture of it with your phone and then share it on social media. But we've also reached out to Good Day Sacramento and some of the local papers and stuff to see if they want to cover it for us. So there we go. Christmas. Oh my goodness. So every year we have an annual Christmas dinner, and we usually meet at a restaurant. You know, it's pretty informal. This year we have something very, very, very special. So not only are we holding it at Jesse's Grove Winery, but we're going to offer a catered dinner that you'll be able to get tickets for ahead of time. It's going to be limited tickets because we're not sure how many people are going to attend. You can, it's for members, but you can bring a guest or a spouse or someone that you want to introduce. And we're going to have entertainment. We're actually going to have a live singing trio singing with us with Christmas, Christmas holiday festive songs. And it'll be really, really nice. And plus we'll have wine from Jesse's Grove Winery. So there we go. So we're going to have more information about that soon on how to buy the tickets, but put that on your calendar. It's that second Thursday night in December, which I think is December 12th, which it is. There we go. All right. So I had to laugh because I was like, I'm just going to leave this in here because it has all of his links and stuff. So last month we said, hey, save the date because we have a special guest speaker coming. And this is all of his social media links. So I want to make sure that you capture that too. And let me introduce our guest speaker, and then we'll get his mic turned on and get his slides up and stuff. So Jose Uribe, am I saying that right? Uribe. Okay, I can say it in a festive way. There we go. So Jose Uribe, right, is a leader in beekeeping and queen breeding. He has over 15 years of extensive experience in migratory commercial beekeeping. He actually manages, he also has experience managing 3,500 hives under his former employer and traveling to the Midwest annually for the honey crop. Now he's the owner and founder of Uribe Honey Bees, and he places sustainability at the center of his business. He has grown from 800 hives plus to 4,000 queen mating nucs. I don't even know where you put all those. And he's done it all within 4 short years. So in 2020, but boy, who remembers that year? That was kind of a crazy thing. He launched the California Beekeeper on YouTube. And a side note, his wife, Kelly, is apparently the mastermind behind all of that. So she's at home with a brand new 3.5-month-old baby. So she's not here with us tonight, obviously. So he has been garnering nearly 19 million views and a growing tribe of 32,000 subscribers on YouTube. And really, he aims to make the critical information widely available. And he attended the the North American Honeybee Expo last year too. Are you going to go this year? Yeah. Oh, I know. So based in the heart of Northern California, Uribe Honey Bees offers exceptional commercial almond pollination, brokering services. Boy, that's an interesting job. Honey, high quality mated queens. Who knows? We're probably going to be reaching out to see if you have some queens in the spring. And he really fosters, and wants to focus on nurturing healthy colonies through advanced genetics, ethical practices, and continuous learning from those research initiatives, which we value very much. Jose's vision is to make a lasting impact by ensuring the success of our customers through strong communication, unwavering support, and honeybee education. Jose's values things like integrity, faith, family, hard work, and he knows that those are all the backbone of his honey company. He takes great pride in mentoring veterans. In fact, they did a great thing earlier this year. It didn't up in Chico, where they were giving out nucs, and also youth in beekeeping. He is also committed to advocating for change in agricultural policies and regulations through the Farm Bill and ensuring the livelihood of farmers and the food that we consume. So with that, welcome, Jose. We're so glad you're here. All right. Slides up.
All right. All right. Well, thank you guys for having me. Came from Red Bluff, so it was a nice little drive up the interstate. Not too bad going through the city, but I'm familiar with Sacramento, so it's nothing new. So I'm happy to be here, and you guys are going to be going through this presentation with me. It's going to be a lot of fun. So see some couple of faces around here that I know, but let's do it. You guys ready? All right.
It's all working. If it doesn't work, just let me know and I'll jump up. I'm going to move your mic up just a little bit because I'm going to do this. Try this.
If you guys haven't tried those chocolate chip cookies, they're really good.
Thank you, Lord, for making those. All right, I think you're good.
Awesome.
Hey, perfect. All right.
All right. Okay. All right, let's do this. Okay. Let's see. Do I aim this a certain place or? Good. Okay. Perfect. Okay. So what I'm gonna be discussing is what I do in my operation to get our hives ready for fall and winter and that transition that so many of us kind of have a hard time. I have a hard time, and I've been doing this for many years, but there's so many different things that I've learned along the way that I think I could give you guys some what works for me in Uribe Honey Bees. Oh, okay. So it'd be right there. Yeah.
Get it so that I can share.
Okay. So she pretty much had a great intro. I have 15 years. All I know is commercial. I didn't get a chance to do hobby beekeeping and learn it just one-on-one, very intimate with one hive in my backyard. It was a part-time job when the market crashed in '08. I lived in Sacramento. I was in construction. I was a general contractor, superintendent. So I got a nice little office in the trailer going over, with contractors and how to do their job or make sure everyone did their job. When the market crashed in '08, I got a part-time job opportunity in Oroville, California. So that was my hometown, and it was through a family friend. So that part-time gig turned into this big thing that I had no idea that honeybees, I just thought honey and bees, and that was it. I didn't know the science. I didn't know I didn't know it was this big thing of an industry. So jumped straight into, it was 800 hives. That's how we started, or I jumped on with this guy. And we built that company to 3,500, brokering 10,000 hives for almond pollination every year. And it was just a lot of fun. I learned and gained a lot. I was head foreman, beekeeper there. What our family, we started our operation in the start of COVID. So that was really challenging to get in the market, and even getting anything started when COVID was happening. Everything was shut down, but not ag. The bees still got to work. And when we branched off, we had 280 hives. And those 280 hives, I was committed to what I wanted to do was queen breeding. So I followed my passion in queen breeding. I learned how to produce queen bees on a commercial level, but I had no idea how to do it with miniature nucs. There's a styrofoam nuke. That's where I started. I started with 100 that summer when COVID started. That 100 quickly turned into 900 our first season, that first spring. And from there, we are now at 4,000 nucs to produce queen bees. And we sell over 15,000 nucs or 15,000 queens every year to customers all over the country. I am very committed to what we do. We get the highest genetics from people like Susan Kobe, Megan Mahoney, Dr. Stephen Shepard, Valerie Severson, and New World Carnolians. So we like to introduce certain genetics into our program to be able to produce certain genetics that we feel work for us and what we know would work for everybody else. The brand California Beekeeper, my wife and I had a vision when I got into the industry, this whole California thing. I love California. We'll just say that I love California. I love living here, and I think we live in the best state to be able to produce the highest quality queens in the world. And I stand by that. We started the California Beekeeper in 2020. We felt that was our way in to be able to reach so many people that had so many questions. And now we've just, by a small effort, we were able to just grow it just organically. So we're going to get into the importance of preparing hives for winter, or for fall and winter. I believe that there is things that you have to do in your operation where you're not pouring resources into what I call lost causes, which I do a lot of grading and culling. And grading culling to me is I'm assessing beehives. I get into my beehives every 2 weeks. That's just every 2 weeks to me is a good time period that you'll never lose anything. I mean, you're going to have your natural losses that you can't do anything without or with. So you naturally, I don't pour any more resources. I don't put queens. I don't put pollen patties. If it's not going to do anything, I shake the bees out. I move on, because now you're pouring resources into a hive that's not going to do anything for you this time of period. So what I do in my operation is first I check weight. I'll tilt hives up. I look down below to make sure that there's a good solid population of bees down below. If I have to, generally you can tell a lot by the bottom. I have 800 hives, so I'm just constantly trying to go through them. I don't have time to look into every single hive. So that tells me a lot. If I have to open it up, all I'm looking for is eggs, make sure she's laying, make sure there's a good pattern, and I'm weeding out anything that's not going to make it through the winter. That's what my grading and culling is. And it's really important to, as tough as it can be, eliminating a hive that has 3-4 frames of bees. If it's not going to do anything, at least those bees can go into other colonies, drift into other colonies where it could benefit those other hives, rather than pouring more resources into that one hive. So one of the things that we run 4-way pallets on our operation. So you can see a picture, there's a pallet right in the entrance. We like to keep our entrances usually around 3 to 4 inches. For us, that's worked really well because it's enough that if we need to put more reducers to either block the wind or block robbing, minimize that entrance to a 2 to 1.5 inch entrance, just so the colony could protect themselves. We're doing that. We're doing that by always getting into our hives. We're breaking down hives. If there's a hive that's too high, but there's all this, it's this bottom solid, the top, you only have two frames. We're going to consolidate it and we're going to break it down into a single, because a hive right now is going to benefit. It's going to stay warmer. The queen is going to keep rearing, and you want her to keep rearing this time period, because she's building right now winter bees, and you want those winter bees to roll into the spring. That's what's going to keep your hive alive. If she can keep rearing right now, then you're going to be in good shape. So I always try to break hives down into a single. If I feel there's too much air or voided space, not enough bees coverage on the top box, so I'm going to break it down. You can see a picture there, just how well populated one can get. And it's not going to grow. It's not going to swarm around this time. It's not going to do anything other than stay populated, still stay healthy. If you need to feed it, you might have to feed a little bit more. I like to feed top cans, and I'll have inside feeders in all of my hives. Let me go backtrack. So another thing is that I always look at the weather. I like to plan ahead. So I'm looking at the weather 1 week ahead of time, or ahead of that scheduled date that I'm going to do the inspections. I don't just say I'm going to inspect on Saturdays. It just is beekeeping, and it doesn't work that way. You're up against Mother Nature. So I'm always looking at the weather. Whenever I have a 55-degree day, then I know that I could successfully, safely get into a hive without causing any damage or setback to the colony, because we don't want to open them up when it's below 55, because you could really damage that brood chamber and set it back. And it does really set them back, because then to get that temperature within that colony takes quite a while to get back into where they were. Treatments. So we treat a lot, especially here in California. And a lot of you, I'm sure, are familiar with, the amitraz, oxalic acid, and the thymol. Right now, we are rolling it. This will be for us, it's our last treatments of amitraz, which is the main ingredient in your apivar strips. That's our go-to, the amitraz based product, just because we know that it actually works. It does get expensive, but we do whatever we need to do in order to, excuse me. We do what we need to do in order to make sure that the hives are mite free. I had a question earlier about sugar rolls. We do not do sugar rolls. If I'm going to test, I usually wait for all my testing, because I'm constantly treating in spring, early summer, and then late summer. I have so much going on that I don't treat or check for my mite levels. I kind of expect that my treatments are working. In August, I do mite washes to make sure I need to be where I'm at as far as my mite levels, which usually if I'm doing a mite wash, I don't want to see anything above 4 or 5 mites in my hive. I know I have a little bit of problem and I need to get to it. So typically, if I could stay below the 1 to 2 mites per 200, I know that, okay, we'll be okay. We'll be in good shape. Around this time, this is just another thing. Amitraz, I prefer not to treat when it starts to get too cold. You need a little bit of heat for that amitraz to really, pack a punch for those, to get those mites to knock off of the bee. Once we have that shift, And when I say shift, I'm talking about the lows in the mornings. I don't want it, and you have your highs are usually around the 85s, no higher than 90. I'll jump straight into my thymol, and that'll be the Apigard. Uh, I really like how it works. I'm not very familiar with the oxalic acid because we have always used vapor and oxalic acid. I know state of California, I believe it's not legal. Um, we are commercial beekeepers and we do what we need to do for our livestock. So I know Randy Oliver talks a lot about the oxalic acid pads. He does great work with that. And if there's a tool there, if that's something that you want to do for oxalic acid. So feeding, I always want to make sure that my hives have a certain weight because around this time, I want to make sure that there's enough stores. I don't know when it's going to start raining, so we want to make sure that it's nice and heavy. So I run double deeps and storing a halves. Storing a halves are a deep and a shallow box in our apiary. So I want to have 65 to 90 pounds of stores in that colony, depending on if it's a story and a half, 65. And that range really, it all depends on your preference. If are you going to get in there and feed? There's so many different factors. Sometimes when people harvest, there's less weight, so you need to add weight. So I always want to make sure that I add enough weight early on rather than as we get later, because right now I still think it's still important. We were warm enough that we could still stimulate that queen. Our goals for beekeeping is pollination. We want to make sure that our hives go into pollination, heavy, populated. And so we always manipulate our feed. We'll do a 2-to-1 just to thin it out a little bit to keep that queen stimulated. If you are just trying to pack weight, we have like Man Lake. You could just buy the straight sucrose, fructose blend, and just feed it straight up. You don't do anything with it if you're just trying to add weight. The thing that I always make sure right now is if I have anything 3 high that just is populated, I want to make sure I push all those bees down, because usually I'll have a three high stack of hives, and it's just because it did really well in the summer, and now I need to push all those bees down to keep it into a double deep. Once it gets cold, they'll vacate that top hive, and it'll just be it'll just be airspace, and it pushes those bees down, and it keeps them more hunkered down. And so you want to eliminate that top box as much as you can if you have 3 high hives. So that's what has worked for us. I know we have experience where we have a triple high hive, and it does well. It has a lot of population, but I know that for us, double deep, pushing everything down, it does so much better. So pollen substitute right now is also a big time to make sure that you have plenty of pollen stores. So I'm always checking pollen stores. We live in an area where we don't have a lot going on. Everything's dry. We do have some vetch, blue curl, knapweeds that are growing, but those mainly are nectar sources, but it's not much. Pollen is, we feed pollen. My go-to is NutriBee. Another product that I use heavily is the Global Patties. But it's important for us to make sure that we're giving pollen sub. Even though they have some stores of pollen stores, I still give just because it has amino acids, lipids, vitamins, minerals, and I always want to make sure that it's good for their digestive system, what a patty has to offer the bees, and it keeps that queen just really stimulated. Also, the combination of the pollen patty and the feed, both of them really can do wonders for a colony to keep it really rolling and populating. So it all depends on your goals. For us, giving pollen sub is very, very important. I do my best, and one of these pictures, if I'm doing any type of treatment, I just make sure that I keep it away from my pollen. I don't want to contaminate the pollen or get the bees sick. I also will never put a can on top if I'm doing any type of treatment. I usually like to do inside feeding if I'm going to treat a hive. I just don't want to put any of that syrup dropping down in any of the treatments, if it's thiamol, amitraz, or oxalic acid. If the bees shouldn't be eating it, so I just rather not putting a can on top if I'm going to be treating. So requeening is something that I do a lot. Not because I need to, it's because I want to. Usually, I mean, a good queen should last 2 years. But because we're in the industry to make money, I want to make sure that my queen and that colony is going to make it through that winter. So if there's anything that's questionable, if I see a spotty pattern, and you could have spotty patterns. Here's the thing: is that you could have spotty patterns. Just got to pay attention to what's in those holes. It could have been, some bees hatched out. It could have nectar. There's so many factors. So I always like to read those frames to make sure that I'm not requeening, and I didn't really have to. But if there's anything that's I'm just have to really think and assess about what's going on, I pinch the queen and I plop in a new one. You still, right now, if you have to requeen, you still have if it's a good colony, and what I say is good, what I would salvage right now is a single. If a single has 5 to 6 frames of bees, I'm gonna invest something into it. If that's a new queen, I know that's gonna survive because a single, it's gonna stay nice and warm. She'll still keep rearing. Make sure I put pollen. Make sure I put some feed, and she's ready to just roll into the winter with plenty of resources and bees. She'll be able to have time to at least rear at least 2 to 3 frames before she shuts down. So here's actually a video of me taping up queens. I don't know if any of you had taped your queens in order to extend that release. Sometimes for us, it gets hot, so the candy is a little soft. So I want to make sure that she doesn't get chewed out too fast, and then they maul her, kill her, and then there goes our queen, and so I like to double wrap it. So that means double wrap masking tape, and then I usually poke with just a little pin, poke a little hole. That usually extends the release date to about 4 or 5 days. 3 days should be with the candy, but on really hot days, the bees will be aggressive. They'll chew that queen out. Sometimes just with that candy, they could chew her out in 1 day. So requeening is huge. It's a huge thing that we do. I would say that we requeen about 45 to 50% of our operation every fall. So that's when beekeeping for us starts. It starts right now. Spring is just a time where everything's populated, so we're able to make numbers. But right now, this is a season where, for our season, it starts because this is when we know whatever we're doing right now is what's going to set us up for the spring. So everything is important right now, and requeening is one of the major things that we like to do. Oh, no, right now she still has time to lay. So, yeah, it's a mated queen. Yes, correct. Yeah, and that's the only thing. I only introduce mated queens. I will not introduce a cell or any virgins. It's just too much to gamble. I want to make sure that we have a mated queen, that she's ready to go to town and start rearing.
Just hold on just a sec. Sorry.
Yes.
So if I know I have a million questions for Jose already too. If we can hold them to the end, I'm going to race around with the mic. And the reason for that is we want to be able to capture this on the recording, but also allow our people on Zoom to be able to hear us. And they won't be able to hear you unless we have the mic. So Ed, is it okay if we hold your question till the end? Okay, remember it. That's the key. All right, thanks.
So again, I probably already went through this. So the reasons why we requeen, obviously the old queens, we want to make sure that we roll into the upcoming season with new young queens, because for us, we're going into pollination. And for some of you that are trying to grow your apiary, I would say it's really important to requeen also right now, if you need to. Because if you have plans on making new splits, new colonies, growing that apiary, 1, 2, 3 hives, whatever that is, you want to set it up. You want to set it up right now. And by having that first, I mean, we're surrounded by almond trees around here. Once they get into the mustard, the almond pollination bloom that's around the area, those bees with the good young queen, they're going to explode. And that sets you up for success to be able to equalize and make more colonies from that one queen that you installed in the fall. The spotty pattern, that's went over that. The colony health. So if I have anything that has had any mite damage, which for us is usually rare, but if I have that situation where there's, so what I do, it sounds brutal, but if there's a hive that's just not doing well, I like to get one of those bees and I squish it in my fingertips, and I like to see what's inside of those bees. If I see this black, dark, I know that has mite damage, has diseases from the mites. So that's an opportunity to requeen, if it's worth requeening, right? If there's enough population in there, I'll requeen it. And to eliminate some of those viruses and diseases that were from that mite damage. One of the things that I do in our apiary to make sure that we have good, healthy colonies this time, as I make sure that I put them where there's water, there's some seasonal weeds that are growing around. I like to keep a lot of my hives near creeks, near the Sacramento River, near lakes, ponds, just because I know that there's something growing or blooming nearby. For us, and don't mind that pink hive tool, that was Kelly's. So, so I'm always making sure that my hives, even right now, we're some of our locations we're making honey. I'm not into the making the honey right now, but it's nice not to feed. Giving your apiary an opportunity to have some natural forage, and by finding ideal locations is huge, and will be huge in the long run, because then you'll know that you have good locations where they can forage naturally. The added bonus that we give them, pollen patties and the supplemental feed, is good, but really it's not healthy. It's like us going to fast food all the time or out to eat all the time. We want to make sure that we set our beehives in areas that they are going to thrive naturally. So one of those pictures, you can see there's a lot of pollen, which should be the one next to me. There's a lot of pollen. So I'm always looking to make sure that, and these are recent pictures. I want to make sure that there is enough pollen. If there is enough pollen, but not enough, feed or nectar flow going on, then I'm having my son go feed. So, so we're feeding, and that's just, you got to you make sure that you have both. To have a healthy colony, you want to make sure you have pollen, good queens, and feed. When you have that, when you set your hives up to have those things, you get good, healthy brood patterns. And nice ring of pollen, nice ring of honey all around that frame. And that's what you want to see in a good, healthy colony is solid, just solid, healthy frames with feed, pollen, and brood. Okay.
You there? Questions?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Who's first? I'm going to race over to you. Oh, nope. Yep. Ed. Hold on. You had a question. Do you remember it?
Yes.
Okay.
I just wanted to know what your hive survival rate is over the winter.
Okay, so we run around float around the 800 now. So I would say out of the 800, I can expect to lose 15%. That's just our standard. On a bad year, I'm losing 30%. On a real bad year, we're losing 50%. That hasn't happened in quite a long time. But environment plays a huge role. If we have those drought years and we're supplementing throughout the whole year, you can expect to have a loss. But when we have a lot of rains in the spring or in the winter, you can tell the difference. Then our loss is usually around 15%, which is really good for having that many hives and trying to get around to them. I know when we were floating around the 400, we were stay around the 5%, but just getting around to everything, it's just really challenging trying to manage that just by myself, I guess, you know.
Oh, there we go.
When you were talking about reducing your boxes down to 2 double deeps,
Yes.
how are you getting all the bees to go down? My thought is use a fume board and push them down that way, or
So what I
do
do, I mean, because I'm always, it's just go, go, go for me. I do a little bit of smoke, I take it off, and then I'm just shaking the frames. Yeah, I'm just shaking the frames. I'm a little rough. You don't have to do that. A fume board could work. But what I'm afraid, because I know how they work, that I don't want to push bees all the way down. So ideally, I mean, I'm just puffing them down with my smoker. Just don't light the bee yard on fire and you'll be all right. But yeah, it's just shaking the frames. That's what I do. And I mean, it looks really bad when I do it just because I'm really rough. It's just go, go, go on to the next one. But yeah, I shake frames out.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Honestly, I just shake them out in the open. Yeah. Yeah, I just shake them out in the open.
And
Yeah.
they fend for
It's
themselves.
just, yeah, it sounds a lot, it sounds very rough. But yeah, I mean, they know what they're doing. They know where they're going. They'll make it in there. Yeah, I've never had any issues.
You talked about requeening, and I'm always curious about how late in the season someone can actually find a mated queen available for sale. And especially at the hobbyist level, because you might only need a handful of queens.
Yeah.
And I know for myself, I want to make that transition to where I'm requeening in the fall instead of in the spring, because in the spring, and because of my hives being in the middle of almond orchards just year round, they're building up, building up, building up before I even have a chance to get a mated queen from anyone. So for me, being able to do it in the fall is important, you know, if I
Yes.
can make that transition. So how late in the season can we typically find mated queens available?
Usually some of the larger operations, like I know you guys recently went to John Foster's place, Busy Bee apiaries. Usually the larger operations still have some queens available. Some of the smaller guys like us, we usually sell out pretty quick, like in August. But yeah, some of the larger folks, they'll still have some available. I know just because I refer people to some of these friends and colleagues. But yeah, it's just a good thing to do because it does set you up for the spring. Requeening in the spring for me, I don't want to lose time. We have honey to make, we have population to grow. So if I can avoid that, I like to requeen in the fall. That way in the spring, it's populated and we're ready to make honey if we need to make honey. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you. All right. Where? Oh, here we go. Okay. Here we are.
Hi. I have a really specific question about like wasp infestation. I'm pretty sure we were pretty sure we almost lost a hive to wasps. Is there a specific way that you can handle that, or can treat for wasps, or any precautions you can take to avoid wasp infestation? I don't know.
In your apiary, you mean?
Yeah, in our
That's a
hive.
great question. You know, I would love to know the answer to that because up north we really don't have trouble with
Oh,
wasps. I
Really?
hear that a lot, but we don't battle the wasps up there. We do see them. The only thing I could think of is having good, strong colonies and minimizing your entrance so they're able to fend their colony.
Because we weren't
Really?
sure.
Wow, it must
what
be
was
really
happening.
bad.
It's weird because it's one hive. I
That's
can
okay.
I can say it was one hive that was kind of weak, and they got in there and killed all the freshborn babies, and
Yeah.
then our hive next to it is completely fine, 0 mites, and just the healthiest it possibly can be. So it was super weird. So I
Huh.
don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea. We don't thankfully we don't battle the hornets or wasp. So
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.
Oh, here we go.
I had a terrible time with yellow jackets last year, and I was fit to be tied. I tried everything and nothing was working. So this year I put the typical yellow yellow jacket traps out that you can get at Tractor in February. In April, May, I caught 17 queen yellow jackets. And this year I've seen 1 yellow jacket at a hive, and I've caught 4 in the traps that still remain up, and I refresh regularly. So I'm calling it a success. But those are yellow jackets.
Yeah.
Let's get over here.
Do you notice a difference in how well mated the queens are? Like, are the early queens more well mated than the later queens, or are they?
You know, it all depends on the company. If we have to push back dates for us, I don't mind calling customers and saying, hey, we're going to push it back 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever that is. But yes, early queens can be an issue if you don't have the right weather, temperature. I mean, it could be sunny, but it could be cold. So yeah, producing queens, the early queens, if I was a consumer, I would feel more comfortable getting queens mid-April, you know, just because I know there's plenty of drone stock, and that their temperatures are usually ideal around that time. But yeah, I always try to encourage folks not to be so excited to get the early queens, just because there is a possibility that you could have perfect conditions, but realistically, science, you can't rush to the science. Drones need to be mature, and it takes 45 days for a drone to be mature. And now enough drones to supply the queens that are being bred in Northern California. I mean, we're talking about thousands of queens, and you need a lot more drones to supply that.
Yeah, I think what happens like this time of year, somebody loses a queen and they panic, and they take whatever they can get their hands on.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
if you-
usually a queen, if you buy a queen right now, it's likely going to be a queen that either came from a 5-frame nuke, or it's a banked queen, which likely is still well mated. Yeah, she loses a little bit of her pheromone, but she, you know, once she gets going, she should be fine.
Can you just repeat that type of queen again? Something with a B, a band queen?
Oh,
What'd you say?
A banked queen?
A banked queen.
Yeah, a banked queen. Sorry, a banked queen is just usually it's a queen. Us breeders, we have a rack each rack, we're able to bank our queens, and we put them in this temporary frame that goes into a queenless colony, where we're able to transport them and or just them be there until they're sold. So that's just what a bank queen is. Yeah.
As a breeder, and you talked about genetics and so on, what kind of things are you tracking, or how are you handling that to figure out you're trying to improve things? How do you approach that?
Well, I usually target my larger customers, if they're from the Dakotas or Florida, and I want to get their input. So I want to see at a large scale, because 800 for me is not large. 10,000, 20,000, to me, that's large. So when I'm selling queens to these larger guys, I want to know, what are you seeing? I'm being, I'll tell them, can you put my queens in your nectar app? And a nectar is a thing where they're able to track what the colony's producing, if it's the amount of brood, how much honey's being produced, how many times you had to requeen that colony. So I want to be able to track my queens, and based on their assessment, I'll have a few questions. Okay, what do you dislike? What do you need more of? Because I see what we have on our end, but environments play roles. For me, what's important is we introduce like Caucasians, because I want to be able to have propolis in the colony. Italians, we're into pollination, so I want to make sure we have a lot of population in that within that colony. The New World Carnolians we bring in because I like how they winter. They're hardy. They're a little more resistant to the mites. Now, you're not going to have a mite-proof queen or colony, but whatever we can do in our end, that's why we breed and we open breed a lot of this stuff. We'll have main drone yards that are Italian, main drone yards that are Carnolians, and we'll bring in certain amount of hives into an Italian yard, mating yard, just so we can bring in some of those genetics into those Italians. That way they're just not Italian or Cordovan. Just diversity to us is huge, as far as a good, healthy queen producing a better bee. But yes, I'm keeping track of propolis, stores, population, and resistance to the mites. So
you were talking a little bit about treatments.
yes.
And I think that's always something we're talking about, because a lot of us will use that. There's a Varroa tool by the Honeybee Health Coalition where it kind of walks you through this triage and you figure out, okay, what options are available. And typically I like to use thymol in the fall, but the problem, or Thymol, but the problem is the heat, right?
Yes.
Because it's heat sensitive. So your temperatures are a little more extreme than ours, but they're very similar, right? This
Yes.
year we've had more than 50 days of over 100, and up there even worse. So how do you, what's your philosophy, and kind of what's your go-to in the fall? Is it the Amatrax?
Yeah, so our big break of temperature is, I think, this week. So now our Amatraz was just applied about 2 weeks ago. And now we're just going to wait for that cool down to do a cleanup. And our cleanup is with the thymol. And it just means that we're just knocking down any excess mites, if there's any mites. I mean, it's not a guarantee, so we always like to do a cleanup. So thymol, yes, to me, that's a pretty big in the fall. So I have had success with it. There's been years that have been better than others, but yeah, thymols, I just make sure that it's not above 85, because it really can cook the bees. Yeah.
You go ahead and take advantage of we always hear people in other places that live other places. They talk about the big brood break, right? And the queen stops laying in the fall, but that really honestly doesn't really happen for us down this corridor of California.
Yeah.
And typically the queen will maybe slow down, but she's still laying. Like I've seen drones, there's still drones, and we see drones pretty early too. But how does that factor into your decision making, right? That because everybody else, it seems like in the country has a brood
A
break.
brood break, yes.
And then do you also, you talked about vapor as well. Do you vapor as well during the colder months?
Yeah,
Or no?
yeah. So usually the vapor will start for us around November. And we probably do it once a month. Ideally, if I feel there's any issues, I'm gonna go 7 days back to back. Every 7th day, because I want to make sure that I'm ensuring to get that brood cycle, which is 21 days. Ideally, yeah, there's gonna be capped. That's only gonna be capped for about usually around 14 days. That's actually capped, but I go the full 21. So it's every 7th day. I'm going in there and we got this big bazooka looking thing. It's called a VM vaporizer. That's what we use. But I'm sure most of you guys have the like the Larabi or the Oxy vape, I think it's called.
Stick thing.
Yeah. So that works great too. If you need to clean up, that's a good thing to do in the colder climate time. Yeah. As far as the brood break, if I think the whole brood break is huge. I think that can be another tool that you can do if you wanted to have a brood break. So what I always recommend is you could probably just cage her up. But it's a long period to be caged up, but you'll get some kind of break, right? You could cage her up for a week to just get some break. And then you can go on with your treatments. But it's just hard. You just got to adapt. So what we do is we just make sure that we treat as much as we can when we need to, right? That's kind of what we do. We live in California, so we don't have those brood breaks, so we have to treat.
And then a question about feeding. And actually, I want to invite anyone that's online, if you want to type in your question, or if you want to come off of mute, you can. I can help with that in just a second. But when it comes to feeding, so we do, so we have like for instance, our 4 educational hives, and this is their first year, right? They were all either a swarm or new colony that we moved in, and where they are, it is very dry right now. The forage is mostly they're surrounded by vineyards, and there might be little pockets here and there. They're just far enough outside of Lodi that it would be hard for them to come in and take advantage of the forage in Lodi because it's almost 5 miles.
Yes.
But it reminds me of the same environment where you are, right? Where it's just hot and it's dry, and what do you do? So, so is there? I know you talked a little bit about the rule of thumb, the pollen versus the syrup. Is there any certain time period that you go for? I mean, is this by November? Is it now? Was it a month ago?
As far as
the feeding,
feeding, I'm still feeding right now.
You're still
So
feeding.
yeah,
Okay.
I'm still feeding right now. So right now I'm still trying to stimulate my queens.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
I'm thinning out the syrup a little bit because my goal is for population. I need a lot of population just because we need to meet our contracts, which is an 8 frame average in all of our colonies going into the almond pollination. But if like those aren't your goals, I still recommend giving some feed. You could thin it out, but if you're lacking some weight, don't dilute it at all, and just make sure you get your weight first, and then just make sure that you have a good population rolling into the winter, because that's pretty key.
So you mean 2 to 1?
Yes.
Okay.
Got it. Thank you. All right.
Good question.
Oh, okay. Hold on. I'll get right back over there.
When you mentioned that you pinch the queen or the bee to see what's inside, what exactly are you looking for?
So sometimes if you pinch the queen, you could sometimes see like a little stringy, or it's that darker. Gosh, it's almost really gross. It's just looks like really dark brown. Has a lot of viruses, disease. A healthy bee that has good nutrients and has no viruses, when you pinch it, usually will be like a lighter color. Almost looks like pollen. So pollen, clear fluids, but it won't be like this like a brown hue to that her fluids.
So you're looking for like chewed up wings and stuff like that inside the
Well,
colony,
that would
or
be a
just like-
visual. Yeah, that
Right.
could be something that you know that there's a deformed wing virus.
Mhm.
You're seeing that means pretty obvious.
Right.
You're not gonna.
I'm just curious
Yeah.
when you're doing that. So.
Yeah, no, I do that if I suspect that the bees are if you know, it's just for me to explain it, it's so weird because the sound of the bees to me just tell me everything. When I open up a hive, I know exactly what's going on without inspecting it. And it probably sounds weird, but I just been doing it for so long that I just recognize that there's something up. And if I recognize what, then I'll dig deeper. So I'm looking at okay, I'm seeing some deformed wing virus, or these bees are just walking around kind of like lethargic looking. So I want to see, okay, are they diseased? Is there mite damage? If I'm not seeing deformed wing virus, I'll pinch it just because to me, I just want to know what's going on. I might nail it, I might not, but just by sacrificing that one queen or one bee, will tell me a lot.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right, now listen.
So I understand we're in California, so this isn't much of a concern, but have you ever used like solid feed of like fondant or confecture or whatever? Do you know
Actually,
the difference?
Yeah, I have. We had this fondant shipped to us once just to try out. It was a product, I think it was called Hive Alive. Right? Does it come in a package? So I did try that. The bees loved it. But for us, I mean, it's just
Price to effective
oh
ratio?
yeah, it just doesn't make sense for our operation. Yeah. But I mean, the bees love it, and I have heard of guys that are sideliners that do use it. They love it. They see what they want to see. But for us, we could get the same thing by the combination of feed and pollen.
Follow up, what's a sideliner?
Oh,
Oh, a sideline beekeeper, someone that has like just a few hives. If it's 25, 50 hives, or then backyard beekeepers. Yeah. Sorry.
backyard beekeepers, we can take our time.
Yeah, I mean, you guys
We can
have the
use all
luxury
these
of
crazy
enjoying it.
things
Yeah.
that, we don't have to treat, a whole bunch. And so we actually have a great luxury because they don't have that luxury, right? Remember, it's livestock and they have an objective and what you have to accomplish. And there's so many more hives and bees to be concerned with. So, shoot, there was a question. Hold on. Is anybody online that would like to unmute themselves and ask a question? We'll see if they're able to do it. If not, you can post it in the chat and then I'll pop over there and take a look. Remembered my question. You talked about the bazooka kind of vaporizer. Had
Yes.
you, so I'm thinking that the ones that are new, Bob Binney was talking about them with the little,
Yeah,
the 20-volt battery.
Yeah.
But those look so cool, right? So are you going to try that or is it not even really worth your time?
No, I'm 44 years old now, and I have a thing about bending over. So, I'm not a fan of bending over anymore. Lifting hives when we consolidate, that's already backbreaking for me to so yeah, if I could eliminate any bending over, then I'm great. Yeah.
Deal. All right, we have two questions in the chat. The first one is how much frames or how much frames of food should you have for a deep? And how much pollen should they have for a deep? So you're talking sounds like one deep box. How many frames of that deep box should be food? And how much of that should be pollen? You want to try and
So that's a
tackle
great
that?
question. I think it would have to depend on what the population is. So on a single on a good single, I want to see at least 5 to 6 frames of bees. So usually the last 2 on the outsides, I need to see full pollen and honey. So it'd be so you got a box from left to right. You want to see honey, pollen, and then you roll into the start of your brood, which will have the honey, the pollen around, and then the start of the brood. And you want to see that for about 4 frames, typically 4 or 5 frames, but as coverage, 5 to 6 frames of bees would be a nice, decent looking single deep. For us, we have a feeder at the other end. So you won't, for us, that's would be considered a full frame of, of honey. Just because in our operation, everything has a inside feeder.
Question was, when do you split? Before, during, or after almonds?
Well, we split right. So as soon as they give us the go to, we actually do not do any splitting. We actually pull nucs. As soon as they say, okay, Jose, you are good to go, pollination is done, we go in there and we do what is called above excluders. So we have double deep hives. We pull about 3 frames of bees. We shake the bees, then we put it on a box. On top, in between in that third box, you'll have an queen excluder, and that allows the bees to go upstairs. So now we have 3 frames of bees and brood, and then we come that evening and we move it out. So that's actually how we do it, because the advantage of that for us is that we really don't set the colony back around that time. If we do a complete split, it just really sets them back. But if you're just pulling 3 frames out of a booming hive, it doesn't set them back. When we put those frames back in, I don't put them right in where they were. I actually bring everything together, and then I'll stick those other frames to the side, because I want to maintain in the first part of March, it's still cool. I don't want to break that brood chamber and cluster. I want them to stay warm. So I'll bring everything in, and then the empties go to the side.
All right. All right. Any other questions? No? I'm looking at hands and faces to see if they're really kind of on the edge to ask another question. Do you have anything? Yeah, Judy. Will you pass our third? Oh, there we go.
So this is a total sideliner question. Do you, and you said you've never really worked at the hobby level, but recommend like moisture boards or insulating wraps for us here?
Yeah. Great question. The insulated wraps, personally, because we do keep some, like my son, my 6-year-old, he has some hives at the house and that we get to play with and kind of monitor. I have noticed that we don't need to do anything other than keeping that entrance, and we usually keep our entrance around 2 inches. That alone is plenty to keep that draft out, just enough airflow.
Mm-hmm.
On our top, because I'm sure you guys see condensation, right? So what I've started to do in the hives that we have just for my son is I just put a piece of burlap right on the top. They do make some moisture boards, right? Is that what you guys call them?
Yeah,
the
like pressed wood. Or,
yeah. I mean, you could put that would help. Any kind of water or moisture in that hive is just bad, because then it creates mildew. For us, we have a patty rim. We don't see that much, but on the ones that we do see, we actually just notch a little sides to allow some airflow, and it'll dry up that condensation that builds up underneath the lid. So
Thank you.
yeah, so on that top lid, we have a patty rim, and I'll just notch. It's a lid. Our lid will have a like a yeah, like a shim. That way, when we put if we put our pollen patty under the lid, it can just recess really well. So it's like a 3/4 inch patty rim all the way around. So we'll notch maybe just like a 1/2 inch to just allow some airflow up on top to dry that condensation if there's any.
And it's a bad fog year. I've noticed there's more moisture, especially if you're in a low spot. So that's something that.
Yeah, another thing that
yeah.
you could do if you're seeing a lot of condensation, heavy condensation, is have that hive tilted so that it just rolls to the front or back of that hive and not over the the brood cluster.
Looks like we have one last question in the chat. It says, what would you recommend doing with a small hive of 2 frames of bees with a new queen? You kind of touched on this earlier, but what would you do?
So what I would do is I would just cage that queen up. Hopefully I don't need it. But I would cage her up. I would shake those bees out. If they want to salvage it, which I don't think it would do much, it all depends on where they're at. I would bring it into a smaller nuke, which would be like, I guess, a 5-frame nuke. Bring it into so it could maintain some heat a lot better and stay insulated. Having it in all that air space in there just doesn't allow that colony to grow at all. It's worth a shot if they want to keep it. But I personally, I'd move on. Jess.
I do want to ask if there's no other questions here in the room. We do have some folks here from the foothills that have faced both the fire danger and bears. Do you want to share just a quick story before we wrap up the night about because you've had a lot of experience with, with both. And we'd love to hear some of your stories.
One of the things fires, we deal with that all the time. I make sure that I do my best to have fire breaks. And I used to, when I first started, I just thought, just a couple feet. No, you need gosh, it seems like 20 feet of a fire break, which, is it realistic to do that? Not really. But what I have done now is before I move bees in, I'll spray the area with Roundup to make sure I kill everything around that area. And that's my fire break. I'm unable to do that often, but I do my best to try to do that. On my phone, I have like a fire app just because we lost the hives in Chester when we had I think it was the Dixie fire. We lost half the bee yard there, and we had a fire break. So all it takes is a windy day, perfect condition, flying ember, land in one of the pallets, and it just ignites the whole bee yard. But those are the things that we do. Fire breaks. I always sign up for a fire app to at least alerts me. We had the park fire recently. I had to move the remaining 2,000 nukes that we had going because there was just a rogue fire south of the park fire, and we just had to move 2,000 nukes out, load them up, and just move them. And that was just because we had the fire app that just alerted me there's a fire. And so, but as far as tips, man, just cross your fingers, make sure you have your fire breaks. And yeah, insurance does help. They don't cover the bees, but they do cover your equipment, which is tremendous because equipment's expensive as it is. So, bears. I like to put my fire or my my hot wire. Hot wire is just my electric fence. I like to set it up before I bring my bees in because I already know that there's bears, and based on my some experience that I've had moving in the bees and setting up my wire, once the bears know that that there's bees in there and there's food, there's nothing stopping them. They're going to get in. So what I do now is I set up my hot wire fence. I bait them. So I'll just put some bacon wrapped around the hot wire. They get zapped. I won't see them. So yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's just what we have to do because that's our livestock. But I also have to keep in mind that we are in their territory. So if I could avoid going to these bare areas, I'll avoid it. But all the good locations up in the like Susanville, Alturas, where they grow alfalfa and there's good forage for the bees, it's bear country. So that's where we go, and that's where we have to be prepared to make sure that we bring our hot wire. Yeah, yeah. So no, I actually have 4 wires. So I'll do gosh, it's a hot ground, and then I put chicken wire on the bottom as a ground also. That way they really get a good zap when, yeah, yeah. So yeah, and that's the same thing that we kind of use. The only thing we do different is put that chicken wire to really give them a good zap. And always communicate, always report everything to your local ag commissioner, game warden. That's one thing that I would say is huge. I mean, relocating bears, just letting somebody else have the problem is not, I mean, but you have to report it. Because if there's any chance you're either going to move them out or you're going to lose your bees. So we report, and then we just move out. And if it happens again, because we usually move out, I don't know, about a mile away. If we have to eliminate the bear, then it's all documented. So, but if I lose 1 or 2 hives, it's not a big deal to do anything to the bear. I mean, we're there. So, yeah.
All right. One last question, which is the future of beekeeping. I'm going to totally put you on the spot, but you have young kids. You have
Yeah.
that like to go out there, that you're trying to foster this amazing, appreciation for bees and the work that's involved. In our county, we actually do have a youth grange beekeeping project. But that's a big topic right now, is how do we foster this future of beekeeping? Because so many of the beekeepers that are around now, we're all getting older.
Yeah.
And how do we keep up with it? Right. There's pollination that has to happen. There's the sideliners, there's the backyarders, there's all these different groups, but ultimately pollination is a huge part of our food and our culture. And
Yes.
so do you have any last thoughts about, what can people do to help inspire these beekeepers? What's the best way to get people into this industry?
You
'Cause you
know,
just fell in it, right? You just fell.
yeah, I just fell in it.
Yeah.
So there's a young kid. His name is Caleb. He's out of it's the Central Valley. I think it's Patterson. But so he was looking for a queen, and he came up north. They have property up in Alturas, so they drove by, picked up a queen, and I got to know the kid. And then I saw that fire of just so many questions. Their family, they run cattle and they run almonds. They have almond orchards here in the Central Valley. So when he told me he wanted to supply the bees for his dad's almonds, that was his drive. And I just think that, just my opinion, if you introduce these kids to bees and how important bees are for our food supply chain, I think naturally they're just gonna be intrigued. They're gonna want to know more. They want to know more about, the almonds, the pollination, the queen breeding, and there's so many things. And just like us, we get hooked once you're in it. Like for my son, he's 6. I mean, that's all he knows. But I don't push it. He's out there because he wants to be. If it's 30 minutes, if it's all day, it's he's there on his time. He's gonna do what he wants to do. And like I don't know if you guys have kids or grandkids and are out there, that's what I always recommend is show them, explain why we're doing what we're doing, and why it's important. It probably doesn't seem like they're taking it in, but they really do. Like my 6-year-old, he's queen catching now. He's on his own, so it's everything he wanted to do. So if you put it there for them, they'll naturally get drawn in and want to do it if they want to do it. And if they don't want to do it, not a big deal. But as far as that, like the young boy, I just believe that it's such a good passionate thing that you just naturally get drawn into. I mean, I can't explain it, but I know if you're gonna be a beekeeper, you're gonna know right away. You're just gonna know it. Yeah.
So I want to make sure everybody knows to follow you, and you can see up on the screen right now, there's a little QR code. So if you take out your phone and put it on photo and then just let it scan it, you'll be able to get information.
I do want to say
Yeah.
that my wife wanted me to tell you guys that she apologizes for us not putting videos out. If you guys do follow our YouTube channel, we've been growing our business. We've been raising our family. And she has been just dying to get back into editing videos. We have about 3 years worth of just content to create. But I am constantly on, if you guys have Instagram, I'm always on Instagram showing just everything that we're doing, just because I'm not really tech savvy and I can handle the Instagram. But as far as editing, I know that that's one of her goals next year is to share our journey as far as growing our business. And a lot of it's aimed on a slightly commercial level, but I'm still small enough where I do a lot of things where hopefully you guys can benefit and gain some knowledge of the little things that we do at some shape or form, and even have maybe a goal of growing your apiary at a certain scale, even for extra income for almond pollination, because I know there's guys around the valley that will take extra hives when needed. I do feel that almond pollination is going to be need of bees. I have heard, every year there's, people that struggle with the mites, commercial and smaller commercial guys. So as many trees are being ripped out, there's more new trees that are coming on for harvest. So I just think there's a balance. There might be less people coming out of state, which gives people in California more opportunity to, get in it. And yeah, I don't see the almond industry, taking a major dip. I think it's nice and steady. It might just be less guys coming from other different states to California, but I think there's plenty of opportunity for people that want to grow their apiary.
Well, I think you're gonna stick around for a couple minutes, maybe.
Yeah.
And so everyone, let's give Jose a round.
Thank you.
We're so grateful that you made that trip down.
Yeah, thanks
And-
for having me. I really enjoyed it. And I appreciate all of you guys. And I hope you guys enjoyed it and gained some stuff. And if you have any questions
Yes.
on our website, I don't know how, but I make time always on my Bluetooth. You guys can call me directly with any questions. I'm always willing to, if I'm able to get onto the phone while I'm working, I'll get on it and answer whatever questions you guys can have.
Now we do have, you brought a whole boatload of hats, and we have a couple of other things in our bin. So how do we want to do this? Do we want all together, all of us? Like everyone? Yeah. So if you'd like a hat, I think, just take one. But, and then do we want to do our raffle? Or do we want to go ahead and hold that till next, the next time? Okay, we're going to hold our raffle till next time. There are three of his hats in here. So maybe we should add them. Maybe we should add them back to your box.
Sure, whatever you
Is
guys
that
want.
because they're going to go really fast. I want one. So somebody save one for me. But, okay. Well, with that, we're going to wrap it up. Everyone's welcome to hang out for a little bit if you need, and, ask each other questions. Make sure you get a picture of our Honey Fest flyer that's over there. If you'd like a couple to take with you to put up, just let me know. Let's see, as far as the room, we're going to leave the tables in place, but all the chairs are going to be stacked up on this wall. And then those of you who have Paul and Patty boxes, don't forget to come and get those. But thank you so much, Jose. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
You.